This is Mr. Holsey of 8 Squared, it's officially understood science, and today we're going to be talking about populations. So a population is a group of organisms that belong to the same species and are living in the habitat at the same time. Populations increase because of either births or immigration with an I. That means they're moving into an area. And then population decreases occur when we have deaths and immigration with an E, where they exit an area. To measure growth rate of a species, it's very simple. All you have to do is take the number of births and subtract it from the number of deaths. And this will give you your birth rate. If you have more births than deaths, your population is going to be growing. If you have more deaths than births, your population is going to be shrinking. And here's a brief explanation of immigration and immigration. Immigration with an I means moving into an area. Immigration with an E means it is exiting an area. So if I decide to move to Norway and become a Norwegian citizen, then I am immigrating from the United States. I'm with an E, I'm exiting the United States and immigrating into Norway. So population density is the number of individuals per unit area. We have three different types. We have clumped, random, and uniform. Clumped is where organisms live in groups, much like schools of fish. Random, they're just kind of all over the place. This would be like trees and plants. And uniform, where they are spread evenly out. This is very common with large predators like tigers because they're large hunting grounds. There are different types of population growths as well. We have exponential growth, also known as a J-curve. And this is a population increase where it's extremely rapid, only after a few generations. And it gets its name because you can see how it appears like a J. Now the experiment that you're looking at right here was done in space. They took microorganisms into space and gave them all the nutrients and space that they could need, and the population just grew until they cut off that food supply. With enough resources, an organism can grow forever, or the population can grow forever. But that's unlikely. There are limitations on resources. And so exponential growth is not sustainable. It's never sustainable. It's always going to hit what we call a limiting factor. And so most population growths are going to end up becoming logistic growth, also known as an S-curve. So it starts as an exponential growth, and we can see the J-curve right here, but it levels off after it encounters a limiting factor, preventing the population from growing any further. And so as resources become less and less available, the growth of the population will slow down. So we can see right here, it begins to slow down or stop. We see a constant there because of limiting factors. Carrying capacity is the maximum number of individuals an environment can support. And that's based off of these limiting factors, most notably food, shelter, things like that. We'll talk about that. But carrying capacity is what causes these organisms to stop growing. We cannot pass this. This is how much the area can support. The only way to change carrying capacity is to change what limiting factors you have. Examples of limiting factors are amount of food, space, mates, competition, predation, parasites, disease, natural disasters, and unusual weather. Environmental changes can play big roles in creating limiting factors, and so can other species, predator, prey, competition. And so the only way after a species has reached its carrying capacity to increase the population is to eliminate the limiting factors, thereby raising the carrying capacity. So as the number of limiting factors go down, the carrying capacity goes up. If the number of limiting factors go up, then the carrying capacity goes down. So it's an inverse relationship. The more problems you have, the harder it is to survive, essentially. And so if all of a sudden we have a drought, it would lower the carrying capacity because the environment is unable to sustain and support organisms, and those organisms, the number of organisms anymore. And so some will die off. An example of how predator-prey relationships can affect carrying capacity and growth. You see the prey in black and the predator in red. So as the number of prey animals rise, we can see an exponential growth of the predators as well. I'm going to highlight this area right here, and we'll just use that as our example because you can see that pretty well throughout the entire graph. It's very similar. So as the number of prey animals rise, the number of predators also rise because there's less limiting factors. There's more food. And since there's more food, there's more offspring, and therefore there's more mates. Now, eventually, the number of predators will outstrip the number of prey, and we'll see the prey begin to decline rapidly. Now, as the prey decline, so do the predators. And when the predators decline, then the prey are able to bounce back. And we'll see this pattern over and over and over again once we've reached essentially an area where we have limiting factors. So here we see human population growth. And one thing you'll notice is for most of human history, and keep in mind over here, this is in billions over here, so we're looking at population in billions. For most of human history, and I cannot draw a straight line, we have been below 1 billion people. Now today, the current population is 7.7 billion people. As of 3/25/19 was the last time I checked. So estimates at 7.7 billion people and growing. Now, so we are about right here in our population. So we can see a very distinct J curve. Right here. But we also notice a leveling off. So, like we've already discussed, the idea of continuous exponential growth is not sustainable. Eventually, we're just going to turn into logistic growth. Now, what accounts for human civilization going crazy and going from, 1 billion people to 7.7 billion people in a little over 200 years? has to do with an event that took place right at the turn of the 1800s, and that is the Industrial Revolution. People started moving out of the countryside and into the cities. There we go. And we saw the rise of modern medicine. And so, as more and more people were able to live longer and quality of life improved, we saw a massive rise in human population as our own technology improved. Now, the estimate right now for the carrying capacity of humans on Earth, the current estimate is somewhere between 9 and 10 billion. And we are currently at 7.7 billion. And if we think about it, whenever we reach that carrying capacity, we'll start seeing some pretty significant issues with food, water, and things like that. Actually, we'll probably start seeing issues about the 8.5 billion mark. In some areas, it's already occurring, where they've already met the carrying capacity for that area. So 3 factors have led to human population growth, most notably fertility, infant mortality, and longevity. Since we're more healthy, fertility rates have increased, infant mortality has gone down, and we are living longer. Animal domestication and agriculture provides for few to feed many. The Industrial Revolution led to the growth of cities and infrastructure, more water, energy, transportation, increased productivity, nutrition, sanitation, medicine. All these things led to the insane growth in human population. So, as far as our carrying capacity is concerned, how are humans affecting the environment and causing that carrying capacity to be limited? First of all, just natural order of things, we have limited resources. Land, food, water, we live on a ball in space. We just can't make that out of nothing. So we have very limited resources that we have to deal with. Agriculture practices, over farming lands, cattle and things like that that are unsustainable. So unsustainable agriculture practices, industries that actually are affecting the environment through water pollution, taking of minerals and resources out of the earth, utilizing land, food, water. So ecosystem goods, we're using renewable, but not as much as we should, but in non-renewable resources from the ecosystem and at a high rate. We are causing desertification and deforestation around the world, water pollution, biological magnification, spreading diseases, air pollution, acid rain, habitat fragmentation. Habitat fragmentation is where we split up habitats to build human settlements in between them, and then introducing foreign species to an area, invasive species. And all this contributes to causing the carrying capacity to go down, because we're actually introducing a lot of limiting factors into our planet. If we were to solve a few of these, it would actually increase the carrying capacity for our planet, for our lives. And this has been Mr. Holsey of A Squared Sufficiently Understood Science. Remember to like, share, and subscribe so you know whenever we post a new tutorial. and we'll see you next time.